Thank you, Madam President. Earlier today, I was starting a talk on GM, and I mentioned some practices regarding regenerative farming. And I just wanted to extend that time to speak specifically about regenerative farming, because it doesn't really fit into the GM sphere. And I thought now would be a great time to do it. The reason I want to talk about it is because I see a change. I see hope, I see a future, and I see a lot of things happening that are affecting that future. And I'm hoping that somehow over the next, 10 years, we're going to see a change back. We're actually going to move forward. We're actually going to take up new ideas and work to make our soils healthier, our food healthier, our farmers healthier, and more financially well off. So with regenerative farming, it's more than just sustainable farming. Sustainable farming, we want to keep things as they are and not get any worse. But with regenerative, we actually want to improve the soil that we've got there so that we can grow more produce more easily and healthier, more nutrition, and basically keep the regional areas healthier themselves, people coming into the areas. And it's simple. It begins with having livestock. Now, this is appropriate now because we're talking about the live export and what might happen with that. And I, along with many others, are saying that things have got to change. But I keep wanting to stand up and say, but we can't damage or hurt the farming industries, the livestock growers, because we need them, they need us, it's part of who we are. And we've got to make sure that if we do lose some of those live export markets, as I believe we will with the things that are happening to these sheep and this cattle, we've got to keep the livestock here. And they're such a strong part of regenerative agriculture because they're the ones that provide the nutrients through their manures into the soil that feeds the microbiota of the soil, that feeds the other living organisms in there so that we can store carbon in our soil, not dead carbon, but living carbon that grows and transfers nutrients and water and helps our plants to grow. And there are all a number of simple concepts that we need to put together to do this. And one is a lower chemical use. Now, a lower chemical use, first off, less cost to the farmer. That's a good one. Lower chemical use means lower pesticide residues in our soils that are taken up by plants. So lower pesticide residues on our produce means our food will have lower pesticide residues, and that will make us healthier. So we've got to look at ways of how we can reduce the chemical inputs into our soils to keep our soil healthy. Because these pesticides and herbicides and fungicides that we're putting in there are actually killing the things that make our plants grow. So we seem to be going backwards along with the rest of the world by industrial agriculture telling us that this is how we have to do it. Next, diversity. So often we have monocultures extending from, kilometers and kilometers of the same thing. That diversity, that lack of diversity means we have a lack of diversity in the soil, and it means that we have less chance to extend the different types of creatures, the different types of biota that will give our nutrients of different varying types to our food that we grow. And also plant variety. We have, something like 300 vegetables and grains that we eat, even though I think there's something like 3,000 different types of corn, and yet the ones that are grown are just very limited to just the few that we can produce on a large scale and transport. And it's like the McDonald's of agriculture, Here's your choices. You get this one, or this one, and they're always going to be the same. But what we need is a variety, because what our bodies need is our variety. We need that breadth of nutrient to help us grow stronger. So we need that breadth of diversity in our plants so that those plants will be growing stronger with a variety of nutrients. It all works as part of a system, and we've been killing that system by wheedling it down to just one or two different things, to taking out so much of the soil, from the soil, so much of it by killing off what's in there. One very important part about having living carbon in your soil is that it needs to be kept moist. We've got to have a moisture content in that soil at all times, because a dry soil is a dead soil. And we've got to make sure that what we're doing keeps the soil in there. So no-till, low-till, great idea, but it's not really keeping the soil moist. What we need are cover crops and different varieties of crops and not clearing the land, you know, every time we grow things on there. We've got to have things growing there all the time. And then you bring the animals in. The idea with regenerative agriculture is you bring in, you could actually end up with more livestock. More of the stories from the book I was talking about earlier today, Charles Massey's.
May I interject?
Sure.
Using animals to regenerate the earth, that's fine in small countries, but we've got 2.5 million square kilometres. You're going to need a lot of animals.
I've heard your point. I'm just going to continue on because you're absolutely right. We need a lot of animals. We need to diversify across this and develop other sorts of industry and other sorts of products so that we can regenerate our regional areas. We need people going out into the areas. And if we have a diverse economy out there with further processing of the things that we're growing, with preserving them and learning how to store them longer. Things like in Manjimup, where they have an industry there now of vacuum sealing baby foods, and they're looking at the aged care facilities as well, where we can take our produce growing in the area, process it, vacuum pack it, and then be able to store it. They can even store crabs. I think it was up to 3 months or something in doing it this way. So they're still healthy and transportable. There's all sorts of things happening out there, but we've had a dearth of resources in our ag department. I'm really pleased to see our ag department is growing and getting stronger, but we've had 10 years to make up where they've just been towing the line of the industrial agriculture, towing the line of the large pharmaceutical companies and the chemical companies, the seed owners. It's just been very difficult to try anything else. And what I'm hoping is that somehow Western Australia can realize that there is a lot to be grown across the region, that if we adopt new practices, as many people have, there are many stories coming out like this, but we just don't hear it often enough. And we still think that the only way is the way with the large industrial agriculture, with mega-sized equipment, with one single monoculture, and throwing more chemicals on any problem you find. That's not how it's going to be solved. We've got to move forward. And if we can move forward, we can get people out there. And if we get people out there with these new industries, new jobs, we're going to have greater job availability out there. We're going to have an increased interest in agriculture, so that we'll no longer be discussing the idea of these ag schools closing or opening, or how many small numbers are there, or whether they come from the city or the country area. We'll actually need the agricultural colleges, because not only will we need the workers out there, but somehow, and I don't have the answer to this one, somehow we have to let the younger people know that are coming up through the school system now that there is work in the agricultural region, that they can get into it, that they will be appreciated out there and find a job out there. Because if we go on a smaller scale than the mass scale we've been going, it won't cost so much to get into the industry. I mean, right now, you know, to imagine starting up a new farm, if you don't inherit it or buy it through a multi-million-dollar company, they're all going to be foreign-owned, and they might be owned by our super funds, but they're not going to be those family-owned farms that I think many of us would remember from our early childhood or so forth. And that's what we need to go back to, where we have those small family farms that are supported by a thriving, healthy agricultural system and by a healthy agricultural department and regional development department, because that's what will make the regional areas grow, and that's what I need to see. So lower cost entry, healthier soils, less chemical residues in the food. Didn't even mention GM once, but GM means more residues, more chemicals used. 99% of the GM crops grown around the world are grown for herbicide tolerance or to grow their own thing that's necessary to keep the bugs away. So it's either within the plant that's growing or sprayed onto the plant. 99% of them, they're not grown to feed the world, they're grown to get more chemicals used, and that's just hurting us. So rather than mining our soils, rather than looking at the large-scale industrial agriculture, which is killing our soils, you might as well be just growing our food hydroponically if we had the water for it. We need that variety. We need the depth of variety to provide the nutrients, not only for the microbiota and the mycorrhizal fungi in the soils so that they can provide the nutrients to the plant roots, but that will grow healthier food that has a greater variety of nutrients for us to be healthy as well.